Hey everybody! My name is Chris Dreisbach, and I'm the CEO of Blueprints for Addiction Recovery. More importantly than that, I'm an individual in long-term recovery. I was really hoping that I'd be able to see all you guys while I was standing up here, but these lights are in my eyeball, so I can't. But I'm really excited because tonight we have a night of recovery for you guys. And the people that are going to be coming out on this stage to speak are some of the greatest people I've met in recovery. I've been roaming around the earth for the last 15 plus years, meeting people, helping people, and doing all sorts of really cool things. And I got to tell you that the three guests we have tonight have some of the most powerful, impactful, and inspirational stories that I've heard, right? So tonight, we've got, and we'll do some rounds of applause because these guys are awesome. We've got Jesus RICARDO RODRIGUEZ. Who now makes his home right here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We've got Curtis FANDANGO Hussey. Hey! And last but absolutely not least, two-time WWE Hall of Famer, Sean X-Pac Waltman is here. He's here. And I could not be more excited to hear these guys' stories. And I want to tell you that a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, 15 or 16 years ago when I first got here to Lancaster, I came here with very little, very, very little. I had the clothes on my back, maybe a couple of things that my mom, who's sitting in the front row, sent me, And really, I had nothing but $21,000 in court costs, fees, fines. I was a 20-year-old convicted felon. Really, very little hope on the horizon for a guy like me. Very little. Because I come from a lower middle-class family. I didn't have a huge, wear center behind me. I came here straight out of rehab, straight out of jail. A judge shipped me to Lancaster 15 years ago, and I haven't left. Right? So I really don't care why you come into recovery, how you come into recovery, for what reason you came into recovery. If a judge sent you, your PO sent you, your mom sent you, your cousin sent you, you just stumbled in accidentally and fell into a rehab. It does not matter why you are here, why you are in recovery, why you are attempting to get better. None of that matters. What matters is that you have at least a tiny bit of willingness, just enough willingness to set aside your own thoughts and your own ideas, to be able to latch on to somebody who knows a whole lot better than you, because that's what happened for me. All I did was follow some guys who knew a whole lot better than I did about how to live, because I was a 20-year-old convicted felon. Clearly, I was not doing very well. Thankfully, people before me got sober and showed me how to live, and all I had to do was latch on to it and follow. So tonight, if you are listening to this, if you're listening to the video later, and you're struggling and you're feeling down and you're feeling like you can't get it, listen to these stories, because these guys all felt the same way I did. Like I couldn't get it. Like there was no hope on the horizon for me. And I got to tell you, there is 100% hope on the horizon for every single one of us. So with that, I'm going to bring out our first speaker. So please, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, give me the biggest possible round of applause you can for Jesus RICARDO RODRIGUEZ.
I am so happy to be here. Hello, guys. My name is Jesus Rodriguez. I'm an alcoholic. It took me so long to be able to admit to myself that I had a drinking problem. For the longest, I thought that it was just, my youth, that was kind of, I was having a good time. I was having a great time. And it took such a long time, a lot of effort to really admit to myself that I was an alcoholic. I didn't have similar stories to others in the sense that I didn't have a broken home. I had great parents. I had loving parents. They guided me as much as they possibly could. So how did I end up with this situation? I had the amazing opportunity to be working for an amazing company called World Wrestling Entertainment. I was there for about 5 years roughly, and it was such an amazing high. It was such a high, and such as somebody that some of us may already know of, Eddie Guerrero, once said that, yeah, that is an addiction. That addiction was an adrenaline of the crowd, of the audience. It was so amazing to be able to wake up and then check my phone, check my email, and say, all right, today you're going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. You're going to be traveling to Italy. You're going to be traveling to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Miami, all over the world. And during that time, I had such an amazing experience living life. But just like everything else in life, I got too much of it too quick and too soon. And I got addicted to it. I got addicted to that high of having that adrenaline rush kick in. I had an addiction to getting that paycheck week in and week out, and then being able to honestly buy whatever I wanted. But much like a lot of us use addiction or use any kind of substance to fill the void, that's what I felt after a while. I felt that I had so much that there was nothing else that can kind of give me that much higher. So when I left WWE in about 2014-15, it was all gone. The lights were off. The people were gone. My high was gone. So I needed something else to supplement that. And for me, it was alcohol. I needed something to fill that void of that rush, and alcohol was there for me. Alcohol was my friend at the time, because if I needed it, it was available. I had the funds, I had the time. I definitely had the energy at the time to go get it. And just like anything else in life, I had too much of it, and I needed something else. So I started turning to drugs. I started turning to cocaine. I became a huge cokehead. And they used to tell me I had a substance abuse problem. I was like, no, man, I got it down pretty well. I can drink like a nobody's business. Put an 8-ball in front of me, I'll take care of that quick. I had no problem. I had a problem quitting. I had a problem saying that I had enough. And just like anything else, I had too much of it. And I lost a lot of it. I lost everything. I had, at one point, a home. I had cars. I had a beautiful fiance at the time. And I lost it all because of my substance abuse. Before I walked in here, I actually had a whole thing prepared. And now that I'm here in front of you guys, it all just went out the window. And it's crazy because we were just talking about this in the back, how we can be in front of thousands of people and not in our underwear, and not worry about a thing. And now that I'm here in front of you guys, it all just went out the door. However, I kept waking up. I kept waking up in alleyways. I would go to bars. I would go to clubs. And then how I would get home, I don't know. Sometimes I wouldn't even get home. I would wake up in some alleyway because I had drank too much and I had too much Coke. And I don't know how, beyond me is how nobody ever took my wallet, but I was just there. I kept waking up in detox centers. I kept waking up in the drunk tank. How I got there, I don't know. How things didn't get any more severe, I don't know. Maybe I had a guardian angel behind me, I don't know. I do know, though, that I had lost it all. And for the longest time, I felt like I was defeated. I felt like I had nothing to go for me. I had so much so fast that I didn't know how to moderate it. And not only that, I didn't know how to control myself because I was in a constant battle with my ego. I was in a constant battle with myself. And that, to me, that's still a struggle that I still struggle with every day. I still struggle with myself, with my inner self. And I know, and this is something that I've had a chance to meet some of you guys in the last couple months that I've been here in Lancaster, that we have this constant battle with giving ourselves fully to our purpose, our cause to getting better. I didn't want to surrender. I didn't want to go get help because I thought I had a grip of it. And it wasn't until almost a year ago, I woke up in a detox center in a hospital in San Antonio, Texas. How I got there, I don't know. I still don't know. Who called the ambulance? I don't know. But I knew at that point when I woke up in the hospital room, in bed, soiled myself completely, that I couldn't do this anymore. I had done this enough times where I was done with it. I had shamed my family. I had shamed myself. Anything that I had built up to try and push myself forward, I threw all that away because I didn't know how to give up a simple bottle. I thought that filling that void meant alcohol, meant drugs, meant the women at the time. I thought that's what was what I needed. But I wasn't full because I wasn't me. There was nothing here. And when I finally woke up in San Antonio, Texas, at that hospital, I went on Twitter. And I actually posted that I had, pardon my language, I had fucked up, that I screwed up and I needed help. And it just so happened that Mr. Dreisbach here happened to be on Twitter. And I got a little DM. I got a message saying that if I really wanted help, to send him a message that he would help me out. And at the time, I was at the end of my rope. I didn't have a lot going for me, so I was like, let me explore a little more into this. So I was like, you know what? Let me just kind of scope this out. And he sent me his info. He sent me his phone number and where I would end up going. And I know I've shared this story with some folks in the past too. And I tell him every single time, and to me it's one of my favorite stories, because when I looked him up and I saw what he looked like, and I saw where this rehab center was, and I looked up what Lancaster was, and all I saw was farm fields and Amish, all I thought was, what is this dude sending me this message that wants to help me out? He wants to bring me out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere. Why? I figured that he was going to tie me up in some silo and tell me to put lotion on my skin. And he still reminds me anytime we pass by a silo that it's not too late. But I'm glad I jumped on that. I was hesitant at first. I swear to you, I was hesitant. But honestly, I thought I was at the end of my rope, and I was like, what do I have to lose? I was at a point where I was so low, and I thought I had lost it all, that I had hit rock bottom. I thought that I had nothing else going for me. So why not? I was depressed. I was suicidal at the time, and I tried. Boy, did I try. And I failed every single time. But I'm glad that I failed because I still had hope. Somewhere in there was still a hope, because so long as I still had breath and so long as I was still able to look up and see what was out there, I still had hope. And because of Chris, and I'm beyond grateful for, he brought me out here. He checked me into Blueprints. What's up? I was over in Cherry Street. And I walked into those rooms. I walked into that room in Mount Joy. And I hated it. God damn, did I hate it. I looked around and I would kind of see everybody else, and I would just be like, what the fuck do I have to? I don't have anything in common with these folks. They don't know anything about my lifestyle. These are, in my head at the time, I thought these are drunkies, these are alcoholics. I have nothing in common with them. But this is where me being able to talk things out and then listen and be accepting to other people's stories and other people's struggles, and then me being accepting to being open and speaking helped me out so much. When I first walked into that room, the community room up in Mount Joy, I had such a guard up. I had such a shield. My parents are from a farm down in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico when I was a little kid. So we were that old mentality of suck it up. Suck it up. Are you hurt? Is something broken? No, then get the fuck up and keep going. We don't talk about our feelings. We don't do none of that mental health stuff. Suck it up. So I carry that in going into those rooms, and then I realized the more people started talking, that I was like them. I was exactly like this person over here. I was just like that person over there. I was like that person over there. We may have not had a similar story, but we had the same battle. We had the same struggle. So through that, I was able to talk it out. I was able to listen and take any little bit that they had said and apply it to myself. And I was able to correlate my issues, and I was able to have a better sort of understanding of it. And I'm beyond grateful for that. I'm beyond grateful for my counselors. I'm beyond grateful for the time that I spent there. It was an entire month, and I hated every single second of it until I got out. I got out, and then I got to walk the rooms. I got to go out to, and I still do my 7 a.m.s over on Butter Road. So I still do those as much as possible. And I know some of you guys are here, and thank you. And I'm beyond grateful for that. I'm grateful for that because I got to open up a new chapter within me to be able to listen to others and to be able to speak my mind and tell people what I feel. That was never a thing for me, ever, ever. There was always 3 versions of myself that people knew about or that I would allow people to know. There's that version that you can look up online that was on TV. There's that version. There's a version that I would tell some of you guys that I was so close to, and there's a version of me I don't tell anybody. That was a part of me that I was holding on for so long, and that was a part of me that was crying inside because I didn't want anybody in there because I've seen what it does sometimes. And I'm still struggling with that. I'm happy that now, 11 months in today, 11 months in today, on my birthday, today, I get to stand here in front of you guys and offer that there is hope, that there is a chance to get better, that there is a chance that we are not forgotten. There are people out there that generally care about us. And if it wasn't for somebody like him that gave me that chance because so many people had given up on me, I had given up on me. And all I needed was that helping hand because as I was reaching out, everybody else turned around and walked away, and I was drowning. And all I needed was that one person to believe in me. And I'm beyond grateful, Chris, thank you. Because of you. Because of you, because of this amazing town, of everybody that I've got to experience at Blueprints, in the rooms that I still walk to this day. I'm able to stand here in front of you now, grateful, sober, happy to be sober. Not always happy, but I'm happy right now. I'm thankful. And I have this whole new idea of what mindfulness is and love. I used to live in fear for so long and hate. I would always constantly blame everybody else for my issues when in reality it was me. I was holding myself. It was always me against me. It was nobody against me. It was me against me. And it wasn't until recently that in the last couple of months that I realized that. I was holding me back. There was this comedian many years ago by the name of Bill Hicks. And he had a bit that to me I still hold dear. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly how it goes. But it goes something along the lines of, life is like a ride in an amusement park. And when you go on it, you think it's real because that's how powerful our minds are. And it goes up and down and round and round, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have remembered that they come back to us and they tell us, hey, man, listen, it's just a ride. It's just a ride. Enjoy it. But we always try and get rid of those people and let the demons kind of run amok. But in reality, it's only a choice of how we decide to go on this ride between fear and love. And that's where I'm at. I've decided to go and choose love because that's what helps me. I was living in fear for so long that it wasn't getting me anywhere. Now, if I choose love, I know that together, both inner and outer, in here and out there, I can experience each and every single one of you guys in peace and in harmony. So again, thank you guys so much. I'm happy to be here. My name is Curt Rodriguez, and I'm an alcoholic.
Sit down. Sit down.
Was mine on?
Have a seat. Have a seat, sir. This is like To Catch a Predator, but different. I had to get him back for the silo dig, you know? I got to sit here every time he talks about it and listen to that. Nobody talks about my emotions, my feelings. You know? But seriously, after each of our guests talk, I'm going to ask them a question. You know, it's going to be a hard-hitting question, like Barbara Walters couldn't do half as good as me. Hopefully Barbara Walters ain't here. But I think this question for you, and I know you fairly well now, you know, after our silo trips and everything. You know, we've gotten to travel the country a little bit and film a documentary. You want to talk about that documentary? You want to talk about how it's impacted your recovery and your life?
So in the last couple of months, thankfully to Christopher Dreisbach, Andy Shankman, who's up there, and the amazing Bobby Guinea, who's up there too. If you guys don't know Bobby, get to know Bobby because he is a legend. We have gone out and about filming basically the progress that I've been going through in my recovery. I have, thankfully, and I'm beyond grateful that I have a platform, be it social media, the people that we know, obviously during the time of WWE, and now also I own a professional wrestling company and academy here in Lancaster called Three Legacies Wrestling. Which could not have been done by myself. It was an entire group project, and I'm grateful for that. So we also decided to start up a production company called Babaconda. So Bobby. So we are filming the process of, we went back to LA, we traveled out and about, we met my mom, my dad, my best friend over there, and basically they shared all the dirt of my drunkenness and stupid stuff that I've done. So hopefully this will be coming out later this year, I believe. All that information will be out on the social medias. I don't remember the tags, but Babaconda Productions. Just look that up. But I'm excited. I'm excited about that, and hopefully, here's the thing, right? So like I said, when I was in the back, I had this whole thing prepared in my head. And obviously, the whole thing went out the window. But what I wanted to get at was that if my story is able to help out somebody else, then that makes me happy. Because I know if it wasn't for my peers that are in the back, peers that I have, people that I know, that if they had not opened up about their issues, I probably wouldn't have either. So all it took was somebody else to tell me about their stories for me to be more inclined to go and seek help. And I've told you, I hated, I didn't like the idea of coming here. I don't like it. I didn't want to. I fought it the whole way through internally. But I figured, fuck it. What else do I got? But I'm grateful for it. And yeah, just check out Babaconda Productions on social media.
Give this man one more round of applause. Send me the dango. Send me a dango. This guy. I literally, just always cry when he talks about anything. So, you know, it's tough because when you see a guy who's in a detox center, a hospital in San Antonio, who literally has no friends left on earth, reach out to Twitter. And I never look at Twitter. Never one time do I look at Twitter, but that night, for some strange reason, I was on Twitter. And I saw it, right? There is no such thing as coincidence, and I am confident that that man is here for a reason, and it's pretty clear what that reason is day after day after day. So with that, we're going to move right into the next one. Join me with the loudest Lancaster round of applause you could possibly come up with for my friend, Curt Hussey.
What's going on, guys? I was trying to think of something really witty to say when I first came out here, but all I could come up with is, I'm Curt Hussey, I'm an addict. Thank you, guys. This is only my second time doing this, so if you want refunds, just talk to this guy over here. I'll just tell you my story. I was born in the 80s. Give it up for the 80s. All right, thank you guys very much. Have a good night. Both of my parents were addicts. My folks split up the year I was born. My mom had her stomach pumped while she was pregnant with me. My dad was, to this day, still is an active alcoholic. And I was born into chaos. The earliest memories I have of my mother were being at parties and guys doing drugs and needles. And I remember driving my dad's Bronco when I was like 4 and him drinking beers. And that was just common. And that was my life until about the age of 4 when the state of Maine took me away from my mother and had me go live with my grandmother until I was about 9 or 10 years old. And then eventually we moved into a trailer park with my dad. He was a truck driver, so he was on the road a lot. And of course, the trailer park we moved into wasn't too clean, for lack of better terms. So there was a lot of drug use, a lot of partying going on. And I never thought I would ever get into drugs. Like, you know, I never drank. I looked at these people and my dad and my mom, and I just, quiet down. Is that your kid? No, I remember being a kid and just, I never thought I would ever drink or do drugs, and just it seemed so foreign to me. And the age of 15, I started watching professional wrestling. And I gravitated towards it, the storylines, the athleticism. It was something that kind of pulled me away from the environment that I was living in. And then I found a local ring. I started training. I got into professional wrestling. And I felt like it was such a gift from God to be involved in something like this. I left school in the 9th grade to go on the road full time, to chase this dream. Because it was my only way out of this trailer park and the drugs and the life that those people can continue to live even to this day. This is an 8-mile Eminem speech, but I know it sounds like it, but yeah, 8 Mile. Doesn't he freak out and like walk off stage? No, I'll try not to do that. So it's the late 90s, and I'm involved. I'm on the road full time, setting up rings, refereeing, not going to high school. But I already knew, I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life, and I was all in. You know, I had teachers in high school that just thought it was this absolute waste of time, and but I knew, I visualized what I wanted to do, and I knew if I just kept on this road that eventually I would get there. And at the time in the late 90s, in professional wrestling, there was a lot of drug use. GHB was legal, cocaine, obviously drinking. So for me, being a 15, 16-year-old kid, I thought that's how I would have to fit in with the older guys. And back in the 90s, it was all jacked up bikers on steroids, and it's a little bit different than it is now. So I fell into the scene at a really, really young age. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like the guys I looked up to on the road. So I'm going up and down the East Coast, all over the country, traveling to the age of 20, 21. And then eventually I pack up all my stuff and move to a developmental center in McDonough, Georgia, that WWE facilitated. And I went all in there, got a job at Applebee's, partied at night, trained during the day, and then eventually I got a contract with WWE in 2006. And throughout this whole time, I didn't have any contact with my mother. The state took me away in like the late 80s, and I hadn't talked to her since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Still had a quasi relationship with my father, which was kind of rocky. So my family was the road, the boys on the road, the boys in the locker room. That was my family. And I remember calling my dad and be like, hey man, I got this contract. And he's like, cool. I'm like, oh shit, thanks. So maybe that was a reflection of his own life. Maybe some of his regrets that he didn't chase something. I don't know what it was, but I remember going back to the house I was living at with the wrestlers I was living at. If I'm going too long here, just blink that light a few times and cut me off. But I remember going back to the house and these guys that I was living with just like tearing up and just fucking so proud of you, man. Fucking. And that was my family, you know. These were the guys I looked up to. But unfortunately, these guys partied a lot. And that was the lifestyle that I lived. To fit in with the guys on the road, I thought I needed to drink. Not so much drug use at the time. To fit in with the boys. It's an ego thing. It's a locker room mentality. And then eventually, you know, throughout my developmental career, up and down, getting called up and down the road, still partying throughout all my minor league career. I got an opportunity with Vince McMahon, who came up with the character Fandango, which was yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Fandango was a lot more confident on the microphone. It's really nerve-wracking talking about yourself up here. So Vince gave me an opportunity to play this ballroom dancing character to go on and wrestle Chris Jericho in his debut match at WrestleMania 29 in front of 75,000 people at the MetLife Stadium. So Vince rented out the Highland Ballroom for about $100,000 to shoot my vignettes, to prepare and build up to this match at WrestleMania. So I get to New York. I take a limo to Times Square at my hotel. Just like that movie Flight, I go right to the bar and I drink all night. Met 2 girls, stayed up till 8 in the morning, went right from partying back to the limo, shot all day, and that was the beginning of my career as Fandango. Just a copious amount of partying. I didn't know why at the time, but it was a fear of failing, so it was self-sabotaging. I was afraid that I wasn't good enough to pull this off, the insecurities. So the match goes off fine. After party, I'm still partying. As the months and years go by, as I'm playing this character, my disease is getting worse. I'm partying more, starting to do cocaine, different drugs. 2014, I remember I bought a condo in Portland, Maine, and I did that online search. I wanted to find my mom. So I tracked her down, got a phone number, called her. We cried and what you expect, and we agreed to meet up the next day before I had to fly back out on the road. And the next day comes, I go to meet her, and she never showed up. I remember going on a bender for 2 or 3 days, missing television that week. That was the first time I lied to WWE, telling them that my mother passed away, but it wasn't the last. Because I thought if I could fill some void with her, maybe it would help fix something, you know? But what I didn't realize at the time, which I know now, is she was so active in her addiction that I couldn't figure it out. I just, it was fuck her, and it hurt. It hurt so much. And So 2015 comes around, I'm still partying. I moved to Tampa. 2016, it's getting worse. More cocaine, pills. And I say this a lot, is my best years monetarily, financially, were my worst spiritually. You know what I'm saying? Because as a kid from a trailer park, all I wanted was a Range Rover, you know, hot girls at a club. Fucking another Range Rover. Why not? And I thought if I got these things, it would make me feel fulfilled and happy. And I would prove myself to all of you. You know what I'm saying? But I felt even more empty than I did when I was in that trailer park. Because I was chasing something that wasn't there, you know? So 2017 comes around, I start dating this girl. She gets a DUI, we're out partying in Tampa. I decide, I gotta stop this. I got sober for a year, dry drunk. And that was the worst year of my life, because I'm like, man, if this is sobriety, this is absolutely miserable. Because I didn't have a community. I didn't know there was a place that I could go to talk to people. It's bringing that darkness out into the light. It's guys like this over here. Just like Jesus said, man, I don't want to get up here and spill the beans to you guys, but if I can help one person, man, and pass this shit on, if they can help somebody else, that's what it's all about. So I was dry drunk for about a year, broke up with her, started dating another girl who was an active addict, not drugs or drinking, but bulimia, eating disorder, which is another form of addiction. And, you know, two addicts getting together, it's just, yeah, you guys know. So that ended really badly. I remember being at a grocery store and just went in and bought a handle of Jack Daniels, and that was the 3 or 4 months downward spiral of what led me here today. Because when I relapsed, which I didn't even know it was a relapse because I didn't even realize I had a problem, that addiction comes back, man. And you know, you think you can start right back up where you left off, you know, drinking and it got really bad, and started doing crack cocaine, a lot more coke. This whole time I'm off the road with a shoulder injury, so I didn't have to be on the road. The week that I had to go back to television in Oklahoma City, January 21st, 2019, prior to that I was in a hotel room in Tampa, Florida for a week, up for a week on amphetamines, cocaine, crack, and whatever else they found in my system. And I had a ticket to go to TV. You guys ever seen that movie Flight with Denzel? And it's kind of the last scene where, you know, he's just done lying. You know what I'm saying? My whole career in WWE, I was just dodging drug tests and lying, and I was just done lying. And honestly, it was the most liberating moment of my life. I know it sounds really cheesy, but I called WWE and I said, you know what, I need some help. And you know, they saved my life, and they sent me to treatment, and took me a few days to detox, and I made some relationships in there that I still cherish to this day. And I just wish that I knew that there was a community, a place that I could go and talk to people, and it wasn't so taboo, you know? And WWE gave me that gift, and I really thank them for that. But a month after I got out of treatment, I get a call from the town of Biddeford, Maine, saying that they found my mother passed out in a street downtown. So they took her to the hospital. They said she had HIV. Come to find out she didn't. Her immune system was so depleted. I went in. They revived her. We made amends. I told her I loved her. Then a few months later, she went back out and she passed away from her addiction. But I feel like God gave me that opportunity to apologize, and we got to have that moment before she did. I don't want to end this on a sad note, but it was a beautiful thing, man, you know, because if that happened before I had the tools that treatment gave me, there's no way I would have been able to handle that. You know what I'm saying? So that's God. That's a fucking God moment, man, if I've ever seen one. I'm sorry to curse, but I mean, what are the odds of that, you know? So I feel like she got to rest easy after that, you know? So after I got sober, I had a community of guys, wrestlers, that we worked together to stay sober together. I went on to win titles in WWE, and I've been sober 4 years now, so. And this guy right here, man, it's a beautiful human being, and he's given us a place to come out here and let people know that they're not alone, you know? And I hope to be half the man you are, man, someday. So God bless you, bro.
Everybody's making me cry tonight. I promise this wasn't a setup for them to, you know. But that was awesome. And
I knew I'd cry. Damn it.
yeah, you got me too. So I wanted to ask you a question because we were talking a couple times, actually, we were talking about the things that inspired you to get sober, right? Those videos from guys like Steve-O and Brandon Novak, they opened themselves up enough publicly to allow you to reach out for help. And I want to talk about how that made you feel, you know, having other people in that limelight open up and say that, you know, they were struggling and now they're doing better. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of skipped over a lot of my life there because we don't have that much time. But I grew up competing skateboarding too until I started wrestling full time. So guys like Steve-O, Bam, Novak, those are guys I really looked up to as a young kid. So to see people that you really admire and look up to that have the same disease as you and have overcome what you have, you know, the disease you have, is really inspiring, and it makes that darkness come out to the light where it's less taboo. You don't feel as trepidatious to talk about it, especially when there's people you look up to, you know? I feel like, just like in wrestling where concussions are becoming more mainstream, I feel like recovery is becoming a lot more mainstream in professional wrestling and in just regular society in general. The only way to fix this fucking problem is to talk about it, guys, you know? Yep. And having people you look up to that are going through the same situation as you, it just makes it that more relatable, I feel, you know?
I agree entirely, and I think it's a really good time to bring some more light into this room. So we have a special guest, Brandon Novak. He's here! Brandon, where you at?
What up, man? Light glass. I feel like I know you very well.
Fuck, dude.
What are the odds that Brandon Novak is right there? And he inspired him to get sober. So we got an extra special guest to talk for a few minutes. So help me welcome Brandon officially.
Almost 8 years ago, to the day actually, I found myself sitting in my 13th inpatient detox unit, right? And I was in a position, A, that I did not understand how I ended up in, and B, I did not believe that I could get myself out of. And I'm 4 days into an excruciating detox, one very similar to what Dango expressed, and somehow I knew that I had to get out of my bed that morning, right? Like I was at that moment, 4 days in, everything hurt, everything was hot, everything was cold, everything was sad, all at the same time, for 24 hours a day, because there was no sleeping, and I just couldn't take laying in that bed one more day, and I said, let me just get out of this bed, and I walked into the day room of, you know, I assure you probably not the similar type of facility that the WWE sent him to, because my alcoholism had progressed for a little bit longer, and people were fed up with my shit, and it was a facility that cost me $2 to get into. And they had this TV on wheels that they carted in, and they were just playing a video of inspiration in the day room for a bunch of hopeless, helpless alcoholics. And you know the statistics. Look to your right, look to your left. Both will die, if not all three. Very encouraging. You can do it type shit. And on this video, now see, prior to this day, I was so disconnected from reality that, like, I was dehumanized. I was no longer sensitive to anything, and I was just kind of like, I was just merely existing at best, and I showed no emotion. I had no emotion. I hadn't smiled, I hadn't cried, I was just there. And it had been years since I had cried. And on this day, I walk into this day room, and all the clients are sitting, and they're actually adhering. They're being good. And this wasn't the kind of facility where the clients were good. And I was wondering what sparked their attention, and I stood there for a second, and I watched, and it was a video by someone that I really admire and who's today become one of my best friends and biggest mentors in my life, a fellow by the name of Chris Herring. And they were playing his documentary. And the part in the documentary where he had left to watch or be with his wife as the wife had the kid, and then he got loaded, and then he went back to the treatment center, and they were thinking about if they were going to allow him to stay or throw him out. And this is a very important part of my story. Turn the phone off. Totally kidding. But no, I'm not kidding. But it's a very pivotal point. It's a very pivotal point in this documentary, right? It's like this cliffhanger, and the therapist is debating, and Chris is like, if they throw me out, then I'm like done for good. And they said, we'll call you in. And he walks into the office, and the therapist is sitting there as cool as a fan. And he said, hey, Mr. Basketball, I want you to do yourself a favor and do your family the biggest favor you could ever do for them. take this phone, call your wife, and tell her to tell your children that you're dead. And I could relate to that. I could relate to that. I could relate to being in that position in life where I was so low that the curb looked like a skyscraper. You know? Did not believe that I could get myself out of this position. Odds extremely against me. Had lived this way for so long that it had become the norm. My delusional reality was really my reality. And I was unpenetratable to that point. No therapist, no ex-fiancés, plural, because they like to attempt to stand between me and my drugs. No family, no anything could block or penetrate this disease that I possessed, that I was so ignorant to because I underestimated it so badly. And when I watched that, for the first time in my life, I broke down crying. And it had been years, I'm not exaggerating, years since I had cried. And I left that day room and I walked out and I'm standing outside and I'm crying and I'm smoking and I'd just been diagnosed with hepatitis C, and again, the odds were against me, but for the first time in my life, I believed that I actually could do it. I believed that I had a chance because somebody that I connected to was worse than me. And I believed that although I had no hope for myself, I became so hopeful for this man that simultaneously it came back around and allowed me enough hope to believe that I could make it through one more day. And that day turned into a week turned into a month turned into a year, and May 25th, 2023 will be 8 years. And it's nothing that I had done. You know, prior to sobriety, to fight was to win. To fight was to survive. To fight was to get another one. And then I come into your cult-like brainwash community that I really don't want to be in, but no one else is willing to accept me. And to make matters worse, you will not give me $10. And you tell me, Chris, that to fight is to die. To fight is to lose. To fight is to relapse. Everything that goes against my codes of ethic, conduct, and survival. And on May 25th, 2015, seeing that video in that detox, because my mother had told me, she had told me that the best thing that she could ever do was buy me that plot, which I still own. And I've decided to be cremated, so I have a plot for sale if anyone's looking. I'm serious, dead serious. But side note, the best thing that she could have ever done was buy me that plot, just because she wasn't getting any younger and she believed that her time was soon, and if she died, who would take care of me? And through believing in a stranger's video that I had never met, it simultaneously allowed me to believe in me, unbeknownst to me. So how dare I be given this gift? How dare I be given this gift and keep it all to myself? That doesn't even make sense coming out of my mouth. And the reality is, if we're going to be blunt here, I've did some very outrageous things on television for the world to see. So getting in front of a camera and sharing my story of my alcoholism and addiction was really like a Monday morning. But it's something that I love, it's something that I believe in, and it's something that I'm passionate about. Because if somebody didn't pick up that phone when I called for an inpatient bed at my 13th attempt of finding sobriety, I'd be in that plot that my mother bought me. So how dare I not pay that thing forward? And this is the first night that I ever met Dango, and Chris, who's now like is a brother and a mentor to me in a lot of different ways, was so kind to share with me how my story affected a stranger just like a stranger's story affected me. And he said, would you be willing to come up to Lancaster for this event? And without fail, I said, abso-fucking-lutely. Because if I asked Chris to do the same, he would say, abso-fucking-lutely. So it is truly my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to simply, because I'm not unique, I'm not different, I'm just passing the torch that someone once passed me to my dear friend Dango, that he just shared about. If his story helps one, makes it worthwhile, will then pass on to someone else. And that in turn creates the community that he had no idea existed that secured sobriety. Beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm going to close with this story. There's a father that works from home, and this father's swamped in paperwork. And he's watching his child, and his child keeps banging his dad on the knee. Dad, take me out to play. Dad, take me out to play. The father, swamped in paperwork, trying to figure out a way to buy 1, 2, 4 days, walks into his office, and in his office on his desk is a big picture of the puzzle of the world map. And he walks over to the picture of the puzzle of the world map, and he dismantles it in hundreds of pieces and throws it on the floor. And he goes back to the son, and he said, son, when you put this picture of the puzzle of the world map back together, I will take you out to play. Father leaves that office, surely thinking he bought 2 4 days, no questions asked. 2 hours later, that son comes back. Dad, I did it. Dad, I did it. Dad's thinking to himself, impossible. They walk back into that office. As sure as the day is long, the picture of the puzzle of the world map is put back together. Father in complete disbelief. Dad is in complete disbelief. Son, how'd you do it? Son laughed. Dad, it was so simple. Dad, it was so simple. On the back of the picture of the puzzle of that world map was a picture of a man. I put the man back together, and the world fell back in place. Together, we stand as a community. Divided, I die. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Sorry for cursing so much.
Guys, give Curt one more round of applause. I swear to you, he had no clue that Brandon was here. And that was awesome. That was awesome. So, my hope is that if you're out here in the audience and you're watching this and you're hearing this and you felt the way that I've felt and you felt the way that Brandon felt and you felt the way that Curt felt and you felt the way that Jesus felt and you felt the way that Sean, who's about to come out and talk to us, felt, my hope is that you connect with one of us clowns, at least one of us, because without connection, we're done. We're finished. And more of our people have to die. And I don't want to see that. I'm real tired of losing my friends. I don't know about you guys, but it's real awful. We were talking not long ago, I don't even remember who with, about AA road trips that I used to take and you know, bringing carloads of guys down to Chincoteague, Virginia, or whatever weird corner of the earth wanted us to come talk. And how many of those entire carloads are no longer with us is very upsetting. And I'm not talking 50 years ago, I'm talking 10, 12 years ago, people in their 20s and 30s and 40s that did not have to die from a very treatable illness. And so I am super thankful that we're able to shed some light on this thing tonight. So Brandon, I have one question for you before I kick you off this stage. How does it feel having inspired so many people, people you didn't know? How does it make you feel knowing that you were at one point homeless bum on the streets of Baltimore? How does it feel sitting on this stage in Lancaster?
It's, you know, it's hard to put it into words because the reality is I never did this or set out on this cause or mission to create a specific outcome. I didn't. When I got sober, I was washing dishes at a diner called Mary Ann's for $6 an hour under the table next to a 15-year-old kid named Brian at 38 years old. And I had no idea what my next path in life was going to be. But I had great mentors in my life, people that believed in me and instilled goodness in me, taught me right from wrong, and they taught me things like you take pride in washing those dishes. You show up 20 minutes early. You stay 20 minutes late. You do the right thing for the right reason. And if you do these things, this will merely be a layover in a much bigger picture called your life. And I didn't know what that was going to be. I'm living in a sober house. I'm paying $165 a week rent. You know, catching a bus, but self-sufficient. I'm working. I'm paying my bills. Started feeling good about myself. And what happened was blessings started to take place, unbeknownst to me, right? All of these beautiful things were aligning unbeknownst to me because I was incapable of seeing the beauty because I was so caught up in the mess. But I was still following the suggestions because I knew that my way no longer worked. And then ultimately, I had no idea that a life of treatment could be an option or a career path. And I was just doing it for the love of humanity and trying to make the world a better place because the world that I came from previous to sobriety was a really dark, drab situation. And I didn't think that anyone deserved to be there, and I knew the way up and out. So why would I not share that with my people? And in doing that, these amazing opportunities just continue to open. I'm not a high school graduate. I got my GED in the penitentiary. I've never went to college, but today I get paid by universities to give talks in colleges. Today I'm a paid speaker for the DEA, right? Like, and this isn't bragging or boasting. This is just simply saying that these defects that everyone counted me as a lost cause have turned out to become my greatest assets. Unbeknownst to me, I just took pride in what I was doing and I did the right thing for the right reason. So I've never really long-winded answer to a short question. I've never thought about what it felt like to do it because it just seemed like the right thing to do. You know, and in doing the right thing, I get asked to come here and be a part of this beautiful experience. That, like it or not, someone in here will be affected by this talk tonight. If you're a practicing alcoholic and an addict, please allow me to be the first person to share you. Your drinking and drugging career is now fucked. It will not hit the same way. If you have a loved one, you'll go home and say, there's a way out of it. And I know how to connect you to the people that can show you the way. You know, the narrative will begin to change with the first step of awareness. And that's all it is for me. So I it feels great, I guess, but I've never really took the time to think about how it feels because now I'm like a pretty into it entrepreneur with business, and I have a million moving parts all over the place, and it's just the next right thing to do. I don't look at my bank accounts to see what sits in there. I don't look at the check mark at the end of the day of how many people's lives I affected. It's just the right thing to do.
But now you get to take a moment and recognize you've done a lot. And I appreciate you for driving up here just to be here and be a part of this. So
and I did it with three of my guys from my sober living house, one of those road trips that you just talked about.
That's right.
You know, and that's what it's about, bringing 4 of my guys. No, I know. Especially Sean.
Sean, you're not allowed to die.
Not you, Sean.
Give Brandon Novak one more round of applause, everybody. It was a lot trying to hide that surprise all day long, you know? Because he's like fairly noticeable. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for our last speaker of the night? So this guy literally flew out of Los Angeles at 5 o'clock this morning. So if he falls asleep during this presentation, don't be mad at him, because he was literally on the other side of the country just a few hours ago. But with that, please help me welcome two-time WWE Hall of Famer and ultra legend in my mind, Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. Life is great. Hey, just give it up real quick for Chris Dreisbach. I've been to 3 rehabs and dealt with a lot of people in the recovery industry and the treatment industry. He's the greatest person I've ever met in that space. So I really appreciate you, Chris. So if you noticed, I just came and sat down right away, and it's because I'm afraid of speaking in public. Anyone that saw my Hall of Fame speech might know that. And so Chris is going to help me through this, and so I don't start just rambling aimlessly. And so what's up, Chris?
We're gonna talk. We're gonna have a chat.
I'm a new grandfather, by the way.
That's right. So Sean, despite having performed in front of millions and millions and millions of people, is still nervous to be here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania tonight.
And also having to follow someone like Brandon Novak, who's actually really good at doing this.
I'm sorry for the way that was set up. That's my fault.
Don't be sorry.
But that was
nice
awesome,
surprise.
though, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
So let's start talking. Let's start talking about your early life. Let's talk about what your life was like early on, how you were feeling, just different things that led up to wrestling, and we'll go from there. How about that?
Well, I mean, early on, do we have a lot of addicts and alcoholics in attendance tonight? So, I mean, I'm sure this is a pretty common story. I was molested as a kid. Anybody else? No one wants to raise their hand on that one, huh? But just a lot of, early childhood trauma, abuse, which, I mean, is really common. I come to find out it's really common, people like me. It wasn't the worst childhood in the world when you hear other people's stories, but, it had its dark moments. And, I don't know how to, so I started loving wrestling as a child. And it was weird because one of my abusers was the one that helped, introduce me to, going to live shows and So it was a huge part of that for me. I got to live my dream, Chris. Obviously, well, how many people here know my story at all? I mean, it's hard. I can't really.
We can't see you.
I just
Can't
don't
see you. We can't see you guys.
Yeah, it's hard to see like how many people are even here.
So
It's sold out,
1,000?
right?
Sold out?
Did we sell this thing out?
It was, but apparently Frank chased some people away, so I don't know. So let's talk about when you first started wrestling, when you first started training. Let's just run everybody through what that was like, what that did for you as a person.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, that's the only thing I ever wanted to do. Like I was trying to get at, it's hard for me to spit things out sometimes. I was 10 when I started going to the matches, and I started setting the ring up. Similar story to, I call him Johnny Curtis, Fandango, but his real name's Curt, who was great out here, by the way. Could you guys give it up for Curt? I figure if I could tell you to give it up for this person, that person, it could distract from me having to tell my story. Where was I?
Talk a little bit about what it was like the first time you got in the ring, how it made you feel.
I can just tell you the first time I actually saw this stuff live, I was just in awe of it. And immediately, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And I wasn't like, I didn't have the physical tools. Everyone laughed at me. I was actually like a pretty bad kid, growing up. I was, does anybody know what the term latchkey kid is? Just like you're kind of on your own, right? Like a lot of the time. And so, I was getting in trouble a lot and that. So, but wrestling, like I said, I knew as soon as I saw my first show that this is what I wanted to do. I visualized. I didn't even know what visualizing and manifesting was as a 10-year-old, but I was doing it. And eventually, there's a lot of stuff happened in between, but eventually I ended up quitting school. I didn't graduate. I completed the 8th grade. I got in the 9th, and I was just like, I'm done with this. It just wasn't for me, kind of like Johnny. But I was really good at this. And even though everyone told me, you're barking up the wrong tree, go to school, do this, I knew what I wanted to do, and I did it. And eventually all these things started happening, that I visualized. And I got to live my dream, Chris. And I mean, but there's a price to pay for everything, right? So
Everybody's got a price, I've been told.
so some people are going, what was that all about?
Yeah.
It's a Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man impression.
So why don't you talk a little bit about what it was like to get signed by the WWF, because he's that old.
Yeah.
And, talk about what it was like getting signed by the WWF as a 18-year-old kid. You were young.
Actually, I was 20. I got
20?
I got some exposure on ESPN when I was still 19, and crazy enough, I got in a relationship, my very first relationship I was ever in, because I was I had no skills or any idea how to deal with relationship stuff, probably stemming from the abuse and whatever. But so the first time I got together with a woman that liked me, I was hooked, and I ended up actually at 18 planning having a baby, with neither one of it, she worked in a nail salon and I was an 18-year-old, 175-pound kid trying to be a pro wrestler. Next thing you know, we're pregnant. So there was that, right? Going into me finally getting the call and coming to WWE, WWF back then, to be the 1, 2, 3 kid. And it was the greatest. Oh my God! I was living like I said, living my dream, and these things were starting to happen, and I was in heaven. As far as I was concerned, this is what life was all about,
So do you want to talk a little bit about wear and tear on your body, kind of how that may have helped lead you to start drinking and doing drugs and eating pills and so on and so forth, maybe?
So like a lot of people, I was drinking here and there, like even in school, right? A lot of people start that in school and that, but it was never really a serious issue until I got in the WWF. And I would like to, yes, there was aches and pains and injuries and pain, but like up until that point, it wasn't as full time. So it was just stuff you were able to deal with, right? And truth be told, I could have dealt with it without painkillers on the road full time too. It's just I got introduced to them, and they really worked good. Yeah, and just they felt amazing. And like you heard Curt out here talking earlier, and so many things about his story, mine are identical. I was 20 years old. I get thrown into this environment where all these like 30, 40, like 40-year-old grown-ass men, like, pirates. And a 20-year-old kid, mind you, I'm a father by now, but I'm still a kid. It's like this kid getting thrown in there, and it's almost like they had to babysit this kid, right? And the most important thing, I think, one of the most important things in life in general is finding somewhere to fit in. And it was so important for me to fit in and impress all the guys. And so, like, when somebody introduced me, hey, here's a Vicodin, and I was very happy to take one, and I was warned about that kind of stuff, and I just didn't quite understand how like addiction worked or anything like that. Pretty much like everyone, like it's crazy that you have to actually have a substance abuse problem to learn about addiction. Like, if I'd have learned about that in school, there's a really good chance I would have made some different decisions, honestly. But I digress.
You digress. So when would you say was the first time you thought it could have been a problem? Your drinking, your drugging, et cetera, et cetera.
It took quite a while, because even after like having some incidents where you take too much and you go down and someone's got to carry you to your room, or you wake up and you're full of piss, and you get up and you just later on that night you're back to doing it again, right? So like I said, it goes back to not understanding how all this works, and just like even when I ended up in my first rehab, Chris, like when they told me, okay, like when they broke it to me that my partying days were over, or however, like I was like, what? When you're like 22 years old and they tell you, hey, no more drinking, no more for the rest of your life, it's just like, come on, So, I didn't want to believe that. Even though, like, I mean, all the signs were there, and the family history and everything like that, so. Well.
So after that first rehab, walk us through that. What happened
Yeah.
when you left the first rehab?
Well, I can tell you real quick, like, how what got me in there. My friends were leaving from WWE to go, WWF at the time, to go to WCW, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And my contract rolled over, and I was stuck there, and they knew I wanted to leave too, and I was in the doghouse in WWF. And, so I was in the doghouse at WWF, and we had a Europe tour, right? It was like the last tour before Scott and Kev went to WCW, and it was a long one, like 3 weeks, and I was on one the whole time. I don't know how, like I might have got like 10 hours of sleep the whole tour. And came back, and we were at a TV taping, and I had just taken, we had this thing we called Rainbow Stew. And what Rainbow Stew was whatever pills you could find. Like it was any old color, any kind of any kind of mood altering pill. And it was just, it could be any combination of any of them, man. And it was just like, I took a handful of rainbow stew and decided it was a good idea to go to a production meeting. And I went down, I overdosed in the production meeting, and that's what got me into my first rehab. And it was a 28-day stay, Chris, and I got out, and I was great for quite a while after that. You know, I ended up, Vince McMahon ended up letting me go to WCW, which was awful nice of him. He got me all cleaned up and then said, oh, go be with your friends, go make some more money if you can get a better deal for yourself and your family. And I said, okay, I'm gone. And life was great for a while. And then, you know, I only went to 3 rehabs, man. I heard Brandon out here talking about 12 or 13. And like, I know may rest in peace, one of my best friends ever, Scott Hall, he had like 12 or 13. You know? Yes. Because Scott, he fought the fight, and you know, like he had a lot of time where he had some good clean time, and he would fall and do the best he could, but he kept fighting. You know, but anyways, yeah. So there I am again, trying to veer off and talk about other people, right?
Okay. I know you love Scott. And
I miss him so much.
I know we talked a lot in the, you know, before he died, we talked a
Yeah.
lot about trying to help him get cleaned up.
Yeah.
And, you know, he definitely didn't stop fighting. So
He didn't. But where was I?
you were talking about after your first rehab. What
Yeah,
happened?
so
You went
it
to
was great, man.
WCW?
Things were great for a long time, and I ended up going back to WWE, and just like a lot of people, man, your guard think life is great, and you know, there was no recovery community within WWE at the time, so it wasn't like I had a couple of people that didn't do stuff, but they weren't like recovery people. They just were people that never got caught up in doing anything, like Triple H. So, anyways, you end up just doing a little thing, a couple things here and there, and yeah, I ended up partying again, having a good time. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Chris, it was a great time for a little while, and then you know things got out of hand.
We'll talk
And it
about
happened, and my wife too at the time, my children's mother, who I mean since the last town halls we did a few years back, my children's mother passed away of addiction, of alcohol abuse. So yeah, it wasn't just me, you know.
Yep. So what would you say led you to your next rehab?
Oh wow, so yeah, I ended up leaving WWE, and I had gotten back in the habit of taking some pills again. And I was taking some Vicodin, and it hadn't gotten out of hand again yet, but I was also taking these things called somas. You guys are aware of somas? Well, back at the time, like, people still didn't quite know. Like, it wasn't even a controlled substance at the time. You could get them really easy. And you take, like, a cup, 2 or 3, and have a slice of pizza, and boom. You know? And so I went down in the airport on the way to Philadelphia for the last match I ever had with WWE. So I ended up in the hospital. I got out of the hospital. I called WWE. I said, hey, I had this incident in the airport. No big deal. I'm fine. No, I'll be there. And I got there, and I was a little bit late, but no more, like I'm usually later. But, you know, we had a match, and my friend Kev blew his quad out, and the NWO was done after that. And then I get a call from Jim Ross saying, hey, Vince was mad about the airport thing. He wants you to go to rehab. And I just wasn't ready to go to rehab again yet. So we parted ways. And then I went right downhill.
So let me stop you there. You mean to tell me that you left a probably multi-million-dollar a year job because you weren't ready to go to rehab?
Yeah. Doesn't that make sense to some of you addicts out there? It makes perfect sense to some people in this building.
I only wanted to say that and reiterate this for the folks who don't really feel substance use disorder, for the people who have never experienced what it's like to throw your dreams in the trash can right in front of you. Because that substance is so powerful, the hold that it has on your mind is so strong that you threw away a multi-million-dollar a year job, your dream job. You threw it in the trash because you weren't ready.
Well, I mean, there were some other things that, like if things would have been great at the time, like I might have fought harder to keep it, but it just seemed like it was time to go at the time, and that just kind of helped push it along. And yeah, I mean, it just like I knew I had problems in the past. I just didn't feel like I was, in that kind of trouble.
Yeah. So let's talk about what led you to, Mexico.
Well, I didn't get to the second rehab yet.
Oh,
I'm
let's
really
go to second
long-winded.
rehab. We're going to second rehab first. Then we'll go to
Okay,
Mexico.
I'll try to a little bit more brevity here.
You're good.
So a lot of people, I don't want to get too much into this because she's no longer here, but a lot of people in here will know about my relationship with China, ninth wonder of the world. Yes. Yeah, she deserves. And another one of the people that I love that's no longer here because of alcohol and drugs. So like a lot of the craziness, I'm not going to delve into the specifics of the chaos that was our relationship. But at one point I called Paul for help, Paul Triple H for help. And he flew out to LA, and I was I was just a complete mess at that point. Like it was, about as bad as you could get. And I was like, I had to tell him, I can't even afford a cheeseburger right now, Paul. And so he actually put me up in a hotel until he could get there. And I had a court date too, because believe it or not, I ended up in jail like about 6 or 7 times while I was in LA for, and it was all for drugs, meth, cocaine, cocaine. So yeah, I needed help, and it's crazy because as soon as he was there for me with that help, and he flew me to Atlanta. There's a place in Atlanta called not Menninger, that was the third one. Talbot Recovery Center. A lot of doctors and pilots would go there. And it just wasn't the right environment for me. It was fine for a lot of people, but we lived like off campus in apartment buildings with like other, I call it civilians, people that aren't and so we had too much freedom, and we could go to movies and drive around. So I ended up falling in with other people that weren't really there to get sober, and next thing you know, I'm in somebody's closet shooting cocaine with some other dude, and the guy actually poked me with his needle, which is, I'm guessing, how I got hepatitis C. I don't have any more, by the way. I got rid of it, thankfully.
Seems to be a common theme with everybody up on the stage tonight is hepatitis C.
And so that, along with, I don't know if you heard Brandon out here talking about cult and, so this is an asshole I am at the time. And one of the reasons why I had to go, I was poisoning the water supply. I was hanging up flyers in the rehab, talking about how AA is a cult, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing here, man? And people will walk by them and just see the AA part and not realize exactly what it said on there, right? So, anyways, it was time for me to go. And I ended up back out in LA, and I basically shit all over the help my friend gave me. you know? And so I never asked for that help again. And I did the best I could for a few years, ended up back in a relationship that was the one that I left my family for in the first place. Might as well try it again, right? So I ended up in Mexico, and I'm skipping through a lot of stuff here. And things ended up getting really bad at one point, and I had a fight with my ex. And sorry, I'm getting all fidgety here, right?
Give this man a round of applause just so he feels better. You're doing good.
Well, definitely this part's not going to be applause worthy. I was so inebriated and so messed up, and things got physical, and I was getting hit. I wasn't doing anything about it, and then my ex took a picture of my kids and broke it over her knee, and I hit her, and I was so ashamed. I swear to God that I would die before I ever did something like that. So I figured the right thing to do would be to go up to the rooftop garden and hang myself, and that's what I did. Luckily, my ex came up and found me, and she got me down with some help from somebody else and did CPR on me for like 40 minutes. It took 45 minutes for the ambulance to get there. I was in a coma for 3 days. I come up out of it. I just remembered all of a sudden, like, I'm just like, I can't see anything, and my ankles are strapped down and my hands are strapped down, and I started freaking out, and I was intubated too, so I couldn't talk, and I had no idea what was going on. I didn't remember anything, and so finally, they pulled the tube out and pulled the catheter out. That was fun. I actually tried pulling it out myself. No one told me there was a balloon in there. Ooh-wee. I can't imagine being awake when they put that thing in. So I was told what happened. I saw and I look in the mirror and my eyes are bright red because all the blood vessels busted from the being hung. And there were calls already made, and my friend Big Kevin Nash, he flew all the way to Mexico City, picked me up and brought me to Houston, Texas, to this place called Menninger Clinic. And it's one of the greatest places in the whole country. Like they have a wing for every mental disorder or any kind of mental thing you have. Like they got an eating disorder wing, a youth wing, like everything you can think of, they got there. And it was the perfect environment for me. And although I fought for maybe a good week or so, I wasn't trying to really, do it by the book. Like somehow I got with the program, and I actually did it right. And it was great. And I put on 45 pounds. I think a lot of people can relate to that one, right? That Seroquel, 45 pounds. Wow, that one got a hell of a pop, huh?
Quell will always get you a pop.
Ooh-wee. People would line up for their Seroquel at night. Anyways, it was so great. I asked to stay an extra. I cried when I left. It was so great. And so they wanted me to go into aftercare, and I just had my own thing in mind, and so I went right back into the apartment that I hung myself at. I went right back to where it all went really bad, and I ended up homeless in Mexico after my rehab, and I ended up using again. but not too bad. Like, not saying I kept it under control or anything, but it wasn't like I wasn't able to function. And eventually, like, in spite of that, I was able to build a little bit of a career back down there, and that. But eventually, good old crystal meth found its way to me again down there. And yeah, I just like I have a really dark story about like just how bad I got this quick again after I found it. And I left Mexico right after this. Like on Christmas night, for some reason they had a show in Tijuana, which I stayed away from. I lived in Mexico 4 years, never went to Tijuana once, even to wrestle. But for some reason, this Christmas night I was in Tijuana, had the match, got in a taxi cab, and the taxi cab driver tells me, "What do you need of me?" Go, "What can I get you?" And I was like, "Oh man, how about some crystal meth?" No problema. And 10 minutes later, I got an 8-ball of crystal, and nowhere to get high at. This is how low it got, and how much of a fiend I was for this shit. I ended up in a strip club in Tijuana, and in the bathroom stall, using toilet water to mix my meth with to shoot in my vein, and I didn't give two fucks. Excuse my language. I did not. All I cared about was getting that. And then like a guy comes in and walks in on me and catches me doing it, and so that's how that's like. A lot of people are like, "Oh my God, I can't even imagine that." I couldn't either. So yeah, I never did another rehab stint after that, Chris. I got out of Mexico, wandered around aimlessly in the darkness for a while, and eventually all the cards fell into place, and the right people came in my life. Mind you, I had great people in my life to begin with, but they were kind of tired of, man, it's a typical story. Like the people, at some point people get tired of being there for you, and I don't blame them. So I had new people. I have to give so much credit to my friends. Some of you might have heard of Maria Menounos. She's a television host, and her husband out in L.A. And I went to L.A. and they connect me with their circle of people and resources and therapists, and even like a hypnotherapist was a huge breakthrough for me, Chris. That was what really made me feel like I deserve to be happy, and I don't deserve. I was allowing myself to be miserable, man, and because I didn't feel like I deserved to be happy. And I do now, and it's amazing. And my life, I have my life back, Chris. I have an amazing wife, which I wasn't gonna ever be able to have a healthy relationship, until this point in my life. So, and like I was saying earlier, I got a grandfather. I'm a grandfather now, and there's no way I could have been a grandfather up until a few years ago. 7 years ago is when things really Jesus asked me what my sobriety date. I don't know exactly, but it's been seven good years. And thank you. And it could be better, and and I think it's gonna get better. I started working on my spirituality a little bit more recently. I've been doing great, and I just think that that makes it, it just adds to it. It just is really the cherry on top, But yeah, and my kids talk to me again. My kids didn't talk to me for 5 years, my son.
So you want to talk a little bit about when you got sober this last time? It was a little bit different than Curt and Jesus' story. You used Suboxone. You used.
Yes.
Go ahead. Talk about it a little bit, because a lot of people are ashamed to use things like that, and a lot of people are ashamed to talk about medication-assisted treatment. And here we have a story of success from it. So
And that's
feel
what I
like it
love
needs
about
to
you,
be
Chris.
said.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to do these things with you, is because, and that people have different beliefs on stuff like that. Man, if somebody wants to try it without, if you're a hardcore heroin addict and you want to try getting sober without Suboxone, man, all power to you, man. But 2 weeks into detox, and I was still like, you know exactly. A lot of people here know exactly what I'm talking about. Like I'm not gonna lie and tell you I didn't think about offing myself. That's how bad the detox was, or the withdrawals were. Somebody introduced me to Suboxone. Somebody gave me one of theirs, and the issue with that was like access to it. And luckily I was able to find a doctor that was willing to go out on a limb and prescribe me Suboxone for pain management, off-label. And I was on it for a couple of years, Chris, and I gradually tapered off of it over about a 2-3 month period, and I had a really smooth landing, so to speak. And I haven't had a craving ever since. I've had a couple of surgeries. I've had 3 surgeries, and I've had opiates prescribed to me after the surgeries. And like I took them how I was supposed to, and I haven't had an issue with that since. And I just I just give you all the props in the world for being for embracing that.
And that
I know
wasn't-
I know people that are. Well, I don't know them anymore because they're dead. But people that were shamed into getting off of Suboxone too soon and ended up going back out there and relapsing, or not relapsing, overdosing immediately. So.
And that's why I thought it was kind of important to bring up, because if you're dead, you can't come back. You don't have hope. And while for a long time, probably the first decade that I was sober, I was one of the people that shamed others for using Suboxone and using a crutch or using a whatever it might have been. And then a much wiser person than me came to me and said, man, we've got this all wrong. Because these people over here are dying left and right. And who are we to say that there's only one way to get there? Who are we to say that there's only one path to recovery? And at that moment, I realized that I had been wrong for an entire decade. And so previously to that, I would have shamed this guy right here for using a crutch. And how wrong of me would that be? Because his life is fantastic today. His life is awesome.
Yes, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I mean, like the whole world opened back up for me, and there was a long time I was on. We had this death pool where like people would bet on who was going to die next, and I was like at the top of the list for a long time, with a couple of friends of mine, and and these are our loved ones, and and let's keep them alive until they get their breakthrough moment,
So, and it needs to be said more often, because closed-mindedness kills more people than anything else in the recovery world. And, I am a person who used to think that way, and I'm ashamed to even think about it, but it's reality. And the reality is that we need to keep people alive long enough to have a spiritual awakening, to have a spiritual revolution, really, because that is the thing that drives people to purpose and drives people to live the lives that they can live. And I think it's so awesome that Sean is willing to fly here from Los Angeles and bare his soul in front of you. And while nervous, while terrified to do it.
It's not my favorite thing to do to talk. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love meeting I love doing meet and greets, meeting people, like stuff like that. Even doing like a podcast or something. But there's just something about this type of setup that gets me really nervous. But maybe saying I owe it might not be the right word, but I kind of feel like that's the right word to use. Like, you know, and I feel good being able to tell my story. It's because, I mean, there's a lot of people that have done it different ways, and there's a lot of people that are kind of in my boat, you know?
So I think we should bring everybody else back out here and have a little Q&A session. What do you guys think? So I don't know if you guys noticed out in the front, but there was like a QR code thing where you could like ask questions and whatnot, and then they go to some magical iPad somewhere. Did you guys see that? You guys see that somewhere? I do not have the iPad. Bobby has the iPad. But before we get to the Q&A session and bring everybody back out here, let's all thank Sean one more time.
No. Thank you. Thank you. I'm like, honestly, I'm honored to be here, and just the fact that you all are sitting here, just listening to everything I'm saying. I really appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Thank y'all.
Hey, Zeus, Kurt, where you guys at? Brandon, anybody? Are you lost? Did you leave? Are you in York? Oh, there's just chairs coming. Here they are! Give these guys another round of applause.
Bobby?
What's that? No, I think you got to pass those mics back and forth. Here's Bobby. Give Bobby a round of applause. He set everything up tonight.
Bobby!
Are you guys ready? You ready for this? Are you ready? Yeah, are you ready? Yeah.
There you go.
I feel like there's not a ton of questions on here. But the first one is the most important one. And it's the one everybody wants to know, is just how old is X-Pac? No, that's not the real question. I'm just messing with him. That was a dig. It actually says, how long has X-Pac been wrestling?
Oh, boy. I had a match last year. I had two of them, actually. So I started in '88. So do the math.
That's 19 and
30-something
88.
years, 35 years, maybe 30. Was it 34 years?
Yeah, 34 years.
Yeah, but I'm done. I'm pretty much done. I tore my bicep and had to have surgery, so it's just like, you know, what are we really doing here? It's time to hang up the boots.
He'll be back. He'll be back for one more match at Three
I'm
Legacies.
50, by the way.
Tomorrow.
I'll be 51 in July.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be a question straight down the line. So pass the microphone along with you. We'll start with Brandon. Why not? At what age were you first introduced to the program of NA or AA?
17.
Officially, I guess, 36, so last year.
35.
I was 22 the first time I went to a 12-step meeting.
I was probably 18, probably. I don't really remember. How about, do you go to meetings when you travel? Is it difficult staying sober? So let's start down at the end with Brandon again, because he does a bit of travel as well.
Yeah, it's kind of ingrained. It's my day-to-day, and it's the norm for me. So I actually really enjoy going to different states and countries and just kind of showing up at a meeting and checking out the vibe there. And no, it's today at this present moment, it's not hard for me to stay sober because I'm proactive. I go to different states, go to different meetings, and I do what's necessary in order to stay sober throughout the day. Tomorrow, if I don't do what I did today, it may be tough to stay sober, but at the moment, it's easy.
So I've only been doing this whole process for the last 11 months, so I haven't done a lot of traveling as of yet. We've done a few here and there, but Jeff Kirby will send me texts in the morning, every morning, like the Just for Today or Daily Thoughts. But just having like an internal, so I don't get a chance to do a lot of meetings when we're traveling because we don't do a lot of traveling. But I mean, I still, like I said, I go to the 7 a.m.s over on Butter Road whenever I get a chance. So yeah.
I do travel a lot. I'm on the road probably at least 4 to 5 days a week. So I do a lot of my meetings over the phone. And when I am home, I didn't mention this earlier when I was out here rambling nervously, but I do construction too. When I'm back home, I have rental properties, and a lot of the guys on my crew in recovery, so that kind of keeps me grounded while I'm home, having those guys around, and they come over for holidays and stuff. So yeah, so to answer that question, a lot of meetings I do are on the phone.
So I don't go to meetings. I have friends in recovery that I lean on and that I keep in contact with. And as far as like it being difficult to to not use, I don't feel that way. Like if I had to walk around like every day white knuckling it, I don't know that I would be standing up here right now. I'm at a place in my life where like I don't feel like that. I kind of feel somewhat normal, to be honest with you. Now I don't get me wrong. I know like if I stray or whatever, like I'm gonna go back down the shitter. But yeah, no, life is great. I don't live like that anymore. Life feels so good.
I do believe it was said at one point or another that it only takes 2 people to have a meeting. So technically,
We're having a meeting now.
yeah, we're having a meeting right now. Technically,
That's
so
kinda,
you do.
yeah,
So
I
you
feel
do
like
go to
this-
meetings when you travel.
I feel like this counts.
It does. Right, Frank? Hold on, let me go to the authority on all things recovery. Frank, does this count? It counts. It counts, guys. Sean, this one's specifically for you. How difficult is it being around guys that you partied with quite heavily?
So the guys that I was around that I partied with heavily no longer party anymore. So it's not hard at all. Like and like the other people that like I know, like I can be around them and like I don't know. I was around Ric Flair the other night. Like honestly, I see people use and it just makes me not want to use more. Like it sucks being around drunks when you're not drunk. Holy shit.
A lot of friends that I thought were my friends, we were just kind of using each other to fill time together, filling that void. And now me being sober and I'm still on the road and running into some of these guys, it's awkward. I think it's a mirror kind of holding up in their face. It intimidates them, makes them a little uncomfortable. My dad, for example, still is an active alcoholic, so I think it intimidates him. And but you really do figure out who your real friends are when they support you when you're going through recovery. People that I didn't think would support me did, and I made a lot of great friends. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah, I mean, you really do figure out who your friends are really quick.
Brandon, I think that's a good one for you to follow up with as well, because you did in fact party on TV with several people that are still out running around, and I don't know if you want to touch on that at all or not.
Yeah, sure. A lot of my friends that are still partying and caught up in what they've admitted is active alcoholism and addiction, right? Because it's not my job to say that they have a problem. Ultimately have reached out to me in one way, shape, or form and asked, if I could guide and assist them into, some form of recovery. And it's worked for some and it hasn't worked for some. I don't have an issue with it. I get really bored of it. I found myself in a position 2 nights ago in a place where it was a club and it was serving a lot of liquor and it was a meeting, dinner kind of thing, but that wouldn't be where I would go. I didn't have to change people, places, and things, right? Because like when I got sober, some of my best friends who are still not sober aren't interested in doing what I'm doing. And I'm not interested in doing what they're doing. And I love them just as much, but we don't have the same interests in life. So it's no loss on our ends. And it's just hopefully that they might find interest enough in what I'm doing that they'll reach out and ask for help.
I like that. I'm gonna go with 2 more questions, and then we're gonna stop and we're gonna take a selfie, because Curt really wants to have a selfie with all of you guys from the end of the stage. So when we're all done with this, I'm gonna need everybody to stand up for an awesome selfie, if you don't mind. Just for Curt, so he can take it home to Maine with him, and remember everybody forever. But the second to last question, being in the entertainment business, how important is the mission to fund more awareness in or production for future stars coming into the industry? And how can we continue this vision? So I think, to paraphrase that, how important is it to you guys to pave the way for the next generation of folks in the entertainment industry?
Wow.
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 That was a lot.
Yeah.
Whoever asked that question, I'm very upset that you made me read all of that. But I still love you.
I don't know. I just, I don't know about all that. I just know it's important for me to be seen and for everyone to see that, like, here's this guy that was we just thought was hopeless. And like, people knew me, but no one, like, there was this saying, like, somebody told me, it was actually DDP that told me this. He goes, it's not who you know, it's who will say they know you. And for a while, like, nobody would, like, they knew me and they were like, oh, he's a good guy, but no one was in a hurry to jump up and go, hey, I'm buddies with X-Pac. And they are again now, and it's so great. Like, and so anybody, like, I just think that if, it sounds cliche, but if I can do it, man, like, anybody can, right? So.
Curt, what do you think?
Brandon and I were kind of talking about this back in the green room. We're way more connected now. Social media, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. I feel like the more we can get recovery out into the mainstream, whether it's professional wrestling, skateboarding, music, and it becomes less taboo. People that you look up to, I look up to, that are in recovery. If you can connect with the younger generation, just one person tonight, like you said, man, if there's just one person in here that takes something out of this, then I did my job tonight. So it's taking the darkness into the light, as cliche as that sounds, but it's the God's honest truth, so.
So I'm not a father, but I do have kids. I run, like I said before, I do have the training center just up the road. So I do have kids. They're my trainees. And through my experiences, I can help them guide and give them a path so that they don't commit the same errors that I did. And that's, I feel, something that my parents tried so hard. But when I was younger, my stubborn ass was like, what the hell do you know, you old man, woman, whatever, my mom, my dad. So what do they know? But they had lived the path. They have been through so much, and they were trying to guide me throughout the whole way, but I was so stubborn and stupid to see that. Now that I'm in this position of guiding the younger generation to go out and then eventually get out there, I don't want them to make the same mistakes that I made. And if they do happen to come across similar situations that I had come across where I failed, I want them to be aware of that and not make the same mistakes that I made. So it's definitely a plus that I have right now, that I went through my mistakes. I don't always look back at my issues and my problems and look down on them, because I'm kind of glad in a way that I did fall. I'm glad that I screwed up now in hindsight, because I was able to realize how I got to that point, so that if I see somebody else come across that, I can offer some actual insight of how not to do what I did. So that's also why I enjoy going to the meetings, because I get to listen to other people, and I get to hear their stories and how they got better or how they fell, so that if I ever come across a similar situation, I don't either commit the same issues, or I don't commit the same mistakes, or I take how they approach a situation and I can apply it to myself. So I think it is important.
Brandon, you want to weigh in on that one as well? Because you, very famously got kicked in the nuts a bunch of times.
Yeah, I mean,
How do you prepare the next generation of people to get kicked in the nuts?
Right, the answer is what all three of these gentlemen said. You know what I mean? I'm great at playing devil's advocate. You know, I understand why you'd prefer to continue to get high as opposed to accept this help. Like, I get that. I understand why you're a felon, a prostitute, a drug dealer, a drug addict. Like, I get that. I understand that. I know that well. That's my people. And again, what they all said is I'm no longer that person. And if I can kind of guide and direct you out of that, if you want that, then how dare I not use this platform of social media that we've been blessed with through the entertainment world, that's created quite a following, to not use that as my platform. So I'll go to the highest of mountains and scream at the top of my lungs to let someone know. It's I believe what my calling is today. Tomorrow that could completely change, and I could own a waffle truck in South Lancaster like Chris. I don't know. But right now, today, I believe my calling is to let people know, if you want it, through not through an authoritative figure, not from a political police teacher approach, but through guys who are covered in tattoos, who've been around the block and understand what it's like to come from a broken home, a single family home, a home of not much, a family member around just enough to let you know they're not around, and to give this to you in a form of attraction rather than promotion. Because if you told me what to do, I tell you why to fuck off. Don't do that, because I don't like authority. I don't conform unless it becomes my idea. So it's all sleight of hand card trick. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just watch the right hand while the left does the magic, and I just sell you on some words. And I get that because I had to be sold on some words. That's it, man.
Perfect. You ready for this last question? This is going to be a real serious question. So everybody get your notebooks out. Get ready. This is going to be a question that comes from Keith, cameraman number 3 over here. Keith, this is his favorite question to ask anybody ever. What is your single biggest blessing from your recovery? If you had to pick one, and why? 3-paragraph essay form, please. Thank you.
Okay. The repaired relationship with my children. Absolutely, 100%.
My relationship with God and my relationship with my friends and family.
I feel for me, it's definitely not being the reason why my mom cries anymore.
I can't say anything that's gonna sound better than these three. But everything they said, you know, my mother, my God, my cats.
Hell yes.
Anybody that crosses my path has benefited from my sobriety, straight up, you know, because I was a fucking menace.
So I want to tie this all together because this has been an awesome couple hours. I mean, I don't know if you guys out there have enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed it up here. But if you did, I know you had an awesome time because I loved this. I mean, I've gotten to know all of these guys right here on a personal level over the last few years. And I wasn't kidding earlier when I told you that they are some of the greatest humans I've ever gotten to meet. So please give them one more round of applause for coming out. Oh yeah, we're getting it, don't worry. I want to say that if you took anything from tonight, I honestly don't care what it is you took from this, but please know that being armed with the facts about addiction and being armed with the facts about recovery are some of the most important things you can do for your community, your family, and the people that you love. So if you take anything from tonight, get armed with those facts. Be ready to jump in at a moment's notice when you see somebody struggling, you see somebody who needs help. And once again, I want to thank you all for being here. Please stand up and let's do an awesome little selfie for Curt.